Hi everyone. So in this video we are going to discuss about the final aspect of the Fujifilm X-S20 and probably a very important aspect nowadays. So that is the autofocus system. And again, like I mentioned in my last video, if you haven't checked it out, you can check it out. It was about the stabilization. I have also covered about the picture quality in the video previous to the previous video. So you can check that out as well. But broadly we are going to discuss about the autofocus system here, and like in the stabilization video you are going to see how the autofocus system here is good, but you have to tune it to your needs, and it's not like you can have one setting for everything. We're going to discuss all of this in this video, and yeah, stick around to the end to understand what I feel about the stabilization overall. And yeah, so let's get into the examples of the different modes of autofocus that you have here. So this is with sensitivity set to maximum, that is 4, and speed set to 0. So we'll see how this performs. Now this is with sensitivity set to maximum, that is 4, and speed also increased to 5. So that is the maximum speed in the autofocus. So we'll see how this performs now. Now this is going to be with settings locked on, that is sensitivity set to 4, but speed is at -5. So speed should not be there. So let's see how this performs. Now this is with settings where it's locked on, right? So sensitivity is at a 5, is at a 4, but speed is at a -2. So it's not -5, but it's -2. So we'll see how this one performs. And this is also in classic neck film simulation. So let's see how this performs. So now that I've gone through the entire footage that you just saw, let's discuss about my insights on the autofocus system and how I feel you should be utilizing it for different situations. So number one, is the autofocus good? Yes, it's good. Is it the best? No, it's not the best. But there are ways you can tune it for the uses that you want. Okay, so a few things. As you saw in the footage itself, the autofocus system, if you make the settings go very fast, it will hunt a lot. Okay, so then what happens is, it's like, okay, here to focus, okay, does he want to focus there, does he want to focus there, does he want to focus there? So that's what the camera is thinking, right? So my suggestion will be to reduce the speed by 2 or 3. So speed is -2 or 3, and then you have your subject tracking, or rather the amount of locked on the tracking has, that is the tracking sensitivity as per your goal. So if you want that, suppose you want the subject to be followed through obstacles, right? Now if you want that, then you want the autofocus point to stick to a particular subject. So then you make the tracking sensitivity to be very high, so that it is locked on. Okay, it is locked on to the subject. That's what that setting does. So if you want that your subject be in focus irrespective of if someone moves in front of it or not, my recommendation is having locked on at maximum and speed to be -2 or -3, not more than that. You do not want it to be completely in negative, the maximum negative that is there. So you do not want to do that, because then it will be very, very, like, if it by chance misses, right, if it hunts back to some, or switches to something else, then you want it to quickly regain back as well. So we are having a fine balance between it not wanting to switch erratically, but also if it does, then you are best placed to not let it ruin your footage or whatever you are doing. So that's the thing. Now coming to wildlife. In terms of wildlife, for birds, this autofocus is very, very good if you don't have a very, very busy background of the color which doesn't allow a lot of contrast for the subject. So if you have a brown subject and a brown background, then there's not much contrast. So then the autofocus hunts a lot, and that's when you are not going to get that good autofocus performance. So try to frame your shot wherein the subject is a bit more distinguishable from the background in terms of color or size, whatever. So but for birds in flight, right, that is the sky is there and the bird is flying, in that case the autofocus system is very, very good. So that's about the bird autofocus. Now coming to human faces, something which is very interesting is, if you have human face eye detection, then the camera performs very, very good. Okay, so human eye detection, what it does is, till the eye is visible to the camera, right, it will focus on the eye, and if the eye is not visible, it will focus on the face. Okay, now if you turn on eye autofocus only, okay, if you only have eye autofocus, then what will happen is it will only look for an eye and not look for the face. So if you turn around, right, it will lose you, because then it doesn't see an eye and it wants to go and search for an eye. So I don't think that is very intuitive of Fujifilm to be putting out a setting like that. I personally feel it should always be eye and eye and face. Just make sure that if the eye is not there, it searches for the head. But otherwise, that's why I never use eye autofocus per se alone. I use eye and face detection, so that there is a fail-safe mechanism is there, because suppose if I cover my eye currently, right, it may lose focus, right? But if you have face and eye detect like I have now, then it will not lose. So that's what I have observed. So do not just turn on eye autofocus and then expect everything to be very good. That is not the case. So please keep that in mind. Rest the autofocus system, as you saw, it performs well, but you have to know which setting and how to use the autofocus to be very good. Another thing, if you have multiple subjects, so you can move the joystick around to go from one subject to another. So in the Lumix cameras it is more intuitive because you do see how many subjects the camera can track, right? So you can go left, right. Here it doesn't show the number of subjects it can potentially track. You just need to, juggle through all the possible options that are there. So it's not very intuitive like the Lumix cameras, but nonetheless it's available. I personally came to know it when I was in Nagaland and I tried it and it worked. So yeah, that's about the autofocus system. So in conclusion, the autofocus system is good. I have learned how to use it so that so I get predictable results, and now I can get absolutely fine results with this. The pros, it's predictable, right? If you know the settings, if you know how to go about it, it's predictable, it's good. The cons, like I mentioned, number one, that you actually need to dive a bit into the settings to fine tune it for your needs. Number two, the only eye detection mode, that I don't think that's good. I mean, you have to have a face eye permanently, so I don't know what that is doing. And third, it's not as sticky as I would want. Even in locked on, it's not extremely sticky. Okay, so in the examples you would have seen also that even in locked on it does hunt a bit. I would have liked for it to even stay there just a bit longer, but that's a nitpick, I know, but these are the three things that I felt that the autofocus could have been better. So yeah, that's the autofocus test. So in conclusion, you saw the picture quality test that we had done, right? The low light, noise, all of that you have seen. You have seen the stabilization test and where I feel the stabilization is very good, what mode the stabilization is very good, what are the things you need to know, and now you have also seen the autofocus performance. So in a nutshell, the camera is very good for its price. The only competitor that I can think of which can come close to this is the G9 Mark II, which in India is currently selling for less than this camera. And that's why I feel that this camera is the best camera under 1.7 to 1.8 lakh, even better than the X-T5, I will say. And I don't think you need to have dual memory card slots just because you're a professional. I don't think so. So personally, I would be very happy to use this camera in a wedding or so. But I understand, people, if they would need a dual card slot, whether they need weather sealing. I already showed that this camera can handle inclement weather decently. But yeah, these are the things. So I do think this is a very good camera for 1.7, 1.8 lakhs. I do think the X-H2 is better than this camera. And again, the X-H2 and the X-T5 are completely different because of the buffer capacity and stuff. So, but nonetheless, like I mentioned, the camera is good. Is it the best camera? No, I still think the G9 Mark II is a better camera than this. But yeah, I think this is the second best camera in this entire price range. The full frame cameras I do not consider because I don't think people who will be wanting full frame would want this camera because they are going for a different kind of experience. They're not looking for a portable experience. They're not looking for a camera, which they can literally travel with for a long time. So I think the target audience is quite different. So, but among the target audience that you want a camera which is decently light enough, the system is light enough, and which can perform very well. I think this camera is the second best camera that is out there, and yeah, from a price point, it's exceedingly well. It performs very good. So yeah, that was all about the X-S20. If you have any questions, if you want me to test out anything specific, do let me know. I would try to test it out if I have the specific lens. And yeah, that's about it. If you like the video, do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you wish to stay updated about the future reviews that I will do, my insights. So next I'll discuss in the next few episodes, that is, I'll discuss about certain cameras versus this camera, along with samples from this camera to illustrate why I think what I think. So yeah, you'll get to know that. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye.